a couple things. One is, you look at this. I have like a full beard. Like, what the hell is this shit? This, like, ooh, look here. I need like a, I can just braid it. Like, so I got to sort that out. And I don't even know what's happening with my hair today. Like, I did do something with it, but clearly I should have looked in the mirror before I went live, because I don't know what's happening over here. But that's what happens when you take a shower, put your hoodie on, don't pay attention, and then just let your hair dry like that. So we're just going to go with, this is my hair for the day. All right. So I'm going to share this to my personal profile, and then we will get this show on the road, because today we're going to talk about something that is like very, very near and dear to my heart, which is becoming best friends with the inner voice inside your head. It was a huge game changer for me when I sort of started to get to know myself a little bit better, as like a Manessa, getting to know Manessa. Like, that was such a big change for me. Even the perspective was like, the mindset shift was extremely helpful. Okay, so I'm going to put this, have you ever wanted to become besties with your inner self? Join me today. Join me, and let's talk about how you can do that. Okay. All right, so now I've got that going. All right. Today is an interesting day because I don't actually have any notes for today, because like, this is something, when I decided to do this last week, there we go. All right, I've got everybody. So when I decided to do this last week, I made a choice to kind of just go with the flow, because I tend to do this particular topic better when I go with the flow. So we're sort of just going to talk, and I'm going to share my thoughts with you. And it's still a podcast recording. It's just not going to be exactly like, the other podcast recording. Alrighty. So I am concerned, though. I am concerned that I don't see any viewers, just because I usually have at least Christy on by now. And so I want to make sure that I'm in the right place. No, wait, of course I'm in the right place. I just shared it. Psst, of course I'm in the right place. Okay, good. We're good to go then. Okay. So, hello. Good morning. It is Wednesday, and it is time for your Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast. This is the podcast I created for business owners. Hey, dude, good to see you. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that I was in the right place, because that's always my worst fear. Is I did that the other day. I went live in the completely wrong place. And I had somebody message me like, "You're not in the squad." I'm like, ah. So good to see you, Sheila. Hello, hello. The Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast, for those of you that don't know, was designed and set up by me, because over the last several years, I've worked with thousands of business owners, and one of the things that like pops up constantly as an issue is that we as women, and as women business owners especially, spend a great deal of time feeling like we should be doing something. Like, whether we're doing something right now or not, we always feel like we should be doing something. So I'm sitting here and I'm working on a spreadsheet. I feel like I should be doing something else. Like, well, I need to hurry up and finish this spreadsheet so I can do whatever is next. And our whole day is spent, hi Paula, good morning. Our whole day is really spent just going from one task to another that we think we should be doing, and like doing the task while feeling like we should be doing something else. So like, there's always this feeling of, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to hurry up and finish this, so I should do the next thing. And like, none of us wants to live like that, right? If you think about how you live your life, you really want to enjoy what you're doing. You want to sit down and be like, I love whatever this is. I don't feel like I need to hurry up and finish it. I can just finish it. There's no worries at all. Like, I have as much time in the world as I need. And a lot of that is actually the result of our programming, over the years that we don't even know what's actually happened. And it's, we've watched, think about the shows you watch when you were a kid, the things that people told you about what it took to be a successful woman, right? You're supposed to dress a certain way, be a certain way, have your big shoulder pads, wear the lipstick, and, don't speak too high pitch, but don't speak too low pitch. Don't be too aggressive. There's just so many things that we're supposed to be doing that it's like, it's impossible to keep, like, think about it. You're keeping track of all these little things like shoulder pads. How are you supposed to be focusing on the work that you're actually doing when you're worried about whether your shoulder pads are in the right place or not? So those things really had a huge impact on me and women of my generation. So we're talking Gen Xers, and a little bit above, a little bit below. So like, sort of like a little bit, a bleeding edge there. And we brought this with us. And today I want to talk about how how the programming specifically is manifested in our lives, and where that inner mean girl comes in, and how she is actually a manifestation of how you treat yourself, and how by developing a stronger relationship with her, your business will do better, because you'll have a business partner all the time that you trust, because she's you, right? So we're going to go through a few things today. But again, we're going to go through this sort of like on the fly. I didn't make any notes, because this is one of those topics that I really like to talk about sort of from the heart as I experience it. Good morning, LaFern. Hello, Cindy. So I'd like to encourage all of you. If you have anyone that you know who you know has low self-esteem, struggles with that inner mean girl voice, is having a business where they feel like they need to constantly ask other people for their validation, like, should I do this, should I do that? And they really struggle with making their own decisions. Or if they're very isolated. So isolation can do this a lot, where you're isolated so you don't have a community around you. Let's say you're in a rural area, or a rural area is a big place, or you could actually be like in New York City, but isolated. So like, you don't actually have to be in a rural area, but if you feel especially lonely as a business owner, this will be a really great tool to help you, because, a lot of the reasons why we make mistakes as business owners is because we're looking outside for validation. And when you're looking outside for validation, you don't necessarily know, aren't necessarily able to make the best decisions, because you're not making them based off of what's right for you, as much as you're looking for somebody to tell you that you've done a good job, so you feel good that you had a pat on the head, right? And that's not a helpful thing for your business. My dad is always trying to rein in my stepmom because she tends to have a booming laugh or voice. Okay, so your dad has reined in your stepmom because she has a booming laugh, and he's like, slow down, be quiet, don't be so loud, right? That's a really big one. Another one, I was talking in the community yesterday, and they were saying how you have to behave like a diminutive, stupid woman. And I don't think women are stupid. I'm just saying you have to behave like a stupid woman. So that men won't be intimidated by you. So you have to hide your intelligence so that men won't be intimidated by you. Don't be too aggressive. Don't be too assertive, and make sure that you don't show off your intelligence. Don't let a dude feel like that you can live without him, because then he's just not gonna, like, those are some of the things that we were raised to believe. And the thing is just because we're older now and have this, our brains are more intellectually developed, and we accept that, yet that's not how it is. That doesn't change what we internalized as children, right? That's still there. Oh my God, dude, I'm so into that. Yes, please do share it in the squad, Dawn, if you wouldn't mind. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. So, okay. So, I'm going to do what I always do. So for those of you who haven't been to the recording before, I basically start, I talk, I do we're going to start now. And then I kind of just look and I talk. I'll talk for about 15, 20 minutes. And then when I'm done, I'll come back and look at comments, and we'll have a conversation and a discussion. Please feel free to share any of your thoughts, any of your ideas, anything that you've struggled with here, because this is something that not a lot of people talk about in the way that I'm going to talk about it. And I think it's very helpful to share your own experiences. So I'm going to give you my raw experience and just tell you everything that I went through. So there's no shame on my side. I'm just going to tell you all the things. But you feel comfortable sharing whatever it is that you want as we're going through. Okay. Alrighty, are we ready? Let's see. My intro is hi, hey Amy, good. You know what? You're gonna like today too, because I was actually you're gonna love today. Okay, so all right, we're gonna go and just hope my intro. Just, you know how I am with my intros. I'm so bad. Okay. No, words matter. Don't say that, Vanessa. You're supposed to say. I'm gonna practice my intro now. All right. It's because I don't have a really good a pitch line yet. I haven't written my one-liner yet. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast. I am your host, Vanessa Konecki, and I created this podcast because I want you to feel excited about running a business. I want you to feel joyful about your business, and I don't want you to feel like you're always having to rush through whatever it is that you're doing now so that you can get to whatever it is that you need to do next, because you feel like you should be doing something else, or what you're doing now may not be wrong, or may not be the right thing, or you don't have enough time. The truth of the matter is, I'm a business coach. I've been coaching for many, many years now. And the truth of the matter is that we don't need to be rushing that much. And a lot of the things that we have inherently as women internalized and believe that we need to do for business are things that we actually don't need to do. So I started this podcast so that I could help to debunk some of these myths around business ownership, especially business ownership for women with chronic illnesses. Those are key. Those are critical, or neurodivergent women. People like us, we're different, and we have a different framework, and we have a different way in which we view the world, and we want to run our businesses the way we want to run them, not the way other people say we should run them. And so this podcast was designed to help you figure out what you can get rid of and what you may want to keep, so that you can design the business of your dreams. Now, today we're going to talk about a topic that is really, really close to my heart, which is becoming best friends with your inner self. Now, the reason why this is so important for me is because in the beginning, when I first started my relationship with myself, like actively, like consciously, I didn't know what kind of an impact it was going to have on me. And I didn't actually understand what kind of an impact it was already having on my business. I just did it because I was tired of feeling bad. It's only now that I can see that through the practices that I've had over the last few years that I've really developed. I've created a business partner. I've created a friend. I've created a relationship with someone who is incredibly important to me and who is always around. And that's the other person inside my head. Not all of us start out that way with a good relationship with the voice inside our head. So I want to talk a little bit about why my voice talked the way it did, where it came from, and like sort of forgive my younger self a little bit and sort of walk you through the process that I went through with my therapist and then the things that I did on my own so that you might be able to follow along as well and apply some of these things in your life. I work with many, many people in the Social Strategy Squad on this, and we've been working on this continuously for a long time. And a lot of them are and a lot of you are here as well. A lot of them are in some process of getting to know themselves a little bit better. But this is an ongoing process and we will drift. So coming back to this podcast will be helpful if you ever find yourself slipping back into the space where you're not being as kind to yourself as you may be able to be. So I want to first share with you that I have ADHD. And when I was in school, I failed all my grades. So I failed all my grades. I have all my report cards. And for the longest time in my memory, I thought I had done well in English and that I failed everything else. But then when I went and got my report cards, I failed everything. I was doing so poorly in every single class. And the nuns, this was back in Pakistan, so the nuns had rulers and they would smack you. It was not a fun time. And on top of that, I lived in a culture where, my classmates and the way in which we were sort of pitted not against each other, but pitted was who's going to be first, who's going to get the highest grades. And I remember that they would stand everybody up, and then you'd come up and get and they'd give out the papers in the highest grade to the lowest grade. So, and my grades were always the lowest. So I was always standing the longest and I was always so embarrassed. And I was so glad when they stopped doing that. Like they did that up until I was in like 8th or 9th grade. I failed 7th grade. So I did really, really poorly. Every single one of my report cards said Manessa would do so well in school if only she applied herself. Every single report card said that. I have it tattooed to my eyelids. I almost failed high school. It wasn't until I went to college that things really started to change for me in terms of schooling. And it was only in the last couple of years that I realized that I had ADHD and I was able to look back on my life differently. Because when I look back on my life as a child and I was in school and I was doing so poorly, one of the things I remember is they'd be like, Manessa, you'd be so smart if you'd be so capable if only you'd apply yourself, right? And what I didn't want to tell them, and I didn't have the words for, but I know now, is I was applying myself. Like I was working really hard. Like I would study, I would try, but nothing, like it just didn't work, right? And for me, what that translated into as a kid is they think I'm not applying myself and that's why I'm not doing well. What if they knew I was really applying myself and I'm actually just dumb, right? Like I'm just actually stupid. Right? So when I was that age, that's how I internalized that information. I'm stupid because I am applying myself and I'm not doing well. Okay. So I'm constantly looking externally for people to tell me that I'm not dumb. Right? So my whole life, I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. And I really felt like I had to prove myself that I was not stupid. And it wasn't even that I had to prove to like I wasn't trying to prove that I was all that. I just wanted to be not stupid, right? Like that's the level that I just didn't want to be on the worst creature on the planet, right? So as I grew older, the teachers left, the voices, the people who were actually there, the voices left, whatever, but my internal voice came with me. Okay. And my internal voice kept with that. They'll find out that you're not really that smart. They'll find out that you are applying yourself and you are working hard, but that you just don't have what it takes, right? They're going to figure these things out. So this was the voice that was in my head for many, many, many years. And so it prevented me from trying out for new things. It prevented me from seizing some opportunities that may have made a difference in my life. It definitely caused me to lose several friends groups because I would get to a point where, and for all I know, this is definitely on my personal profile, so some of those friends groups, people may even be watching, where I would lose some friends group because I would get to a point where I would be like, if they get to know me any more than this, they'll figure out that I'm not. So like if I only knew people for like a couple of years, then they wouldn't get to know me long enough to realize what a loser I was and how I didn't know anything, right? So I lost a lot of friends because I didn't want to be around them because I didn't want them to find out. I liked them so much, I didn't want them to lose respect for me, right? So this manifested itself in many, many ways growing up. It's very lonely, it's very scary, it's very, it's just generally unpleasant. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because your life may not look exactly the same as mine, but some of these stories may ring true in terms of relationships, in terms of how you felt, in terms of the mean voice that you hear in your head, things like that. Okay, so I always historically, up until about 5 years ago, would, when that voice would come and be like, you're stupid, whatever, I would just be like, shut up, go away, I don't need this. But I'd just be really, draw the line harshly, get out of here, I don't need to hear this voice, I am a good person, like really just, I am like reaffirming, I am good, I am smart, I am these things, right? Like really meeting the aggression with aggression. But I can't remember exactly how it played out before I was cutting the onions. But I remember cutting the onions. And I was in my kitchen in my old house, and I was sitting and I was cutting onions for something. And I wasn't even really thinking about anything related to business or work or whatever. My mind was kind of just wandering. And I went somewhere. And my voice comes in and starts with her bullshit. Like, yeah, no, that's never going to work for you. And it was pretty aggressive this time. Like, she was like super aggressive. And in that moment, I had an epiphany. And because I was about to go, get lost, go away, do my standard thing. And I thought to myself, when was the last time that someone came up to me, like, forget about the voice, just a person would come up to me and like be like, you're an asshole, you suck, get out of here, you don't know anything, right? How would I respond to that? Not well, right? Not well. I would either respond with aggression, I would respond with defensiveness, I would respond with anger. There's a lot of different things, but none of them would be like love or consideration. I just respond with equal or greater force to like, boom, right, go back. And it made me realize that this inner voice had been coming at me that way all along. And as long as I went back to her with that same level of violence, then she was going to come back at me with that same level of violence. And that it was just going to escalate. Years ago, I watched one of my employees. She was working with an investigator, and I watched her work with this investigator. Like, they were outside of my office and they were talking to each other. And the investigator, her voice started getting much, much higher. And then the RA's voice started getting much higher. And then the investigator's voice started getting much higher. And then, right? And so like they're getting, they're really going to 11, right? So when it's all over, I invited my employee back into the office and I said, listen, I was like, when someone keeps going higher and higher, if you go higher and higher to match them, then everybody's just going to keep going higher and higher, right? And we're just going to keep getting more and more in that space, whatever that space is. But if you, as the research administrator, remain calm and keep your measure where you want it to be, then they have no choice but to come back down to meet you, right? So now if they're yelling at you and you're like, oh my God, I understand, that, you know what, how can I help you? Right? Now, like, the response that they're going to give you is not going to be another yelling. It's going to actually be down a little bit because they're going to come down to meet you. The same thing is true with your voice, right? Your inner voice. If you respond to your inner voice with anger and rage and rejection, then she is going to respond with equal ferocity. So in that moment, while I'm cutting onions, she's coming at me, and I did something I've never done before, but I've been doing a lot since then. I said, are you okay? How are you feeling right now? And there was silence. And I could feel myself feeling something different inside. And it was almost like a huge shift happened. And I really consciously separated the two people. Me, conscious, talking to you right now, and then me back here that you guys don't get to hear. She's just here, right? And I said it again. I said, what can I do? How are you feeling? And she just fell apart inside. And she said, you haven't taken care of me in such a long time. I'm so lonely. And you're not here for me. And we don't talk. I don't feel like I matter to you at all. And it made me realize, I did not expect to cry. It made me realize that I had been mistreating myself so badly. That my inner voice was simply responding to the abuse I was giving her, the neglect, the lack of care. And she was responding with that same voice because she just didn't know how to get attention. And this is how she knew how to get attention, because it worked every time, right? And so I said, I'm sorry, and I started to really ask myself, what do you need? How can I help you? And the truth of the matter is, you don't need very much, right? You need to eat so that you're taking care of yourself. But more than just that, you also need to just look inside yourself and treat yourself with care, right? How are you? How are you doing? And I'm asking you that right now. How are you? How are you doing? Can you ask your internal self how she's doing, right? Like, ask her, how is she doing? Spend some time with her. And that means meditation. That could mean sleeping. It could mean sitting in the morning in silence while you're drinking your coffee. But it could also mean something in the moment, So like, because a lot of these things require time. You're sitting down and you're meditating. You're like, that's 20 minutes out of your day, 15 minutes out of your day. I recommend downloading the Headspace app. It's a really good app for this. But not everybody has that time. I am a big believer that if you don't think you have the time to meditate, then you need twice the amount of time to meditate, because you're missing the point of meditation, which is, by the way, I say the same thing to myself all the time, because I'm like, oh, I don't have time to meditate today. And I was like, Vanessa, if you say you don't have time to meditate, that means you need to meditate twice as much, because that's going to make you more focused and more at peace and at ease, and you'll get more done. But that's a really tough thing to like sort of swallow. I'm going to stop for 20 minutes so that I can do more with the time that I have. I don't know, right? Like, that's something that does work, but it's tough in terms of your cognitive dissonance that it creates. Taking a walk, right? Doing something for yourself that you enjoy. If it's crocheting, knitting, drawing, playing with your dog, but doing something that truly brings you joy. Not, and especially if it's something that you would usually say to yourself, I don't have the time. Right? I don't have the time. You are literally saying to yourself, I don't have the time for you. You are not a priority for me. You're not a priority for me. Think about that for a minute. When you are not a priority for yourself, how can yourself show up for you? Because you're not investing in yourself. Why would yourself show up for you? Right? So for me, that was like a big epiphany and aha moment, and it took, I talked about it with my therapist, and, there were a couple of other things that other of my spaces that I work in. But for me, what I would recommend is first, just pause every so often and ask yourself how you're doing. Really just think, quiet. How are you doing? Give yourself that space. Think about something that gives you joy, whether it's reading or drawing, something not business related. Like, I know there's like, oh my God, I love my business so much, it gives me joy. I think that's great. Do something different, right? I get it. I think I love my business too. Do something different, right? Something else, something in a hobby, something that's outside, something that's not a computer, something that's not related to selling, something that is simply for the soul that is in this body. You're doing it only for that. The soul and the body, that's here. That's it. You're just doing it for this. That's it. That will make a huge difference. Now, why is that important? In terms of your business. And we can talk more after this podcast, when we do the Q&A about this. So for those of you that are listening later on, we have a live conversation that goes on after the podcast on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. But what happens is this. When you start spending more time with yourself, because that's the first thing you do, is you spend more time with yourself, you pay more attention, and simply just don't be harsh with yourself, right? So like, if you're about to be like, shut up voice, don't say shut up, right? Instead, maybe just give her a hug, right? Like, be more gentle and kind with yourself. Now, what happens when you do that is that the defensive edge that exists within you all the time, that is that person that's in there, that voice, it starts to kind of like bleed away a little bit. Okay. And because you're investing time in here starts to move starts to help you more with the things that you want done. Because what's happening is that now you're clearing away a lot of that emotional clutter that's creating a barrier between your mind brain connection, your mind body connection, right? Your soul, mind body. And if you're an empath like me or a highly sensitive person, you know that this connection between your soul, spirit, gut, and your brain and your subconscious and your conscious is very, very important. And you may not know how much control you have over it. Having these conversations with yourself allows that two-way dialogue to begin, right? And be, because right now it's just a one-way dialogue where both people are yelling at each other. Now, again, like I said, many people who are in the squad are probably watching right now, and you are probably on different varying stages of the journey of getting to know yourself. Some of you have got a good relationship. Some of you are just starting out. Some of you are looking for tips or tricks. Some of you are feeling lonely and just don't know how to begin that relationship. And that's why this particular podcast is good, because it will just get you started in that space. And again, it's not rocket science. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. It's really just being mindful, slowing down, and taking the moment to be that huggy person for yourself, right? And if you feel your inside self being injured, turn inward and say, oh my goodness, are you okay? Right? Like, be that best friend and really think of that person as another entity. It's super helpful when you really take the action of separating the entities and just having two yous. It makes the language easier, it makes the conversations easier, and it makes the discussions that you have not only with yourself, but with other people easier, because it's easier to articulate what's actually happening. There's this voice and then there's this voice versus calling her your mean girl, because she's not your mean girl by that point. By that point, she's become your friend. Over time, what happens then is, and this is very powerful, because that person is in your subconscious and she does a lot of work for you, like so much work for you. Right now, all the work she's doing for you is she's doing a lot of really good work, but she's also doing a lot of really negative and harmful work that comes from reinforcing some of the beliefs that we have about ourselves that we undo with this work. But once she's not doing that, then she now has free time. And so she starts to then, while you're sleeping and in your subconscious, really start to work through connecting your business dots and your strategy dots and your visionary dots. And now you start to feel more confident in your business, so that when there's something that you want to do or you want to try, you don't feel like you need to go outside of yourself to validate, right? Because here is where the big issue comes from for many of us, is that if you feel like you're stupid, right? Like we talked about earlier, then that means that you don't know how to run a business, which means someone else has to tell you, because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself to know what to do next because you're dumb. You know that, because if you were smart, you would have, when you applied yourself, you would have gotten those grades, right? That's the thing. So obviously, you're not smart, right? So now we believe that. So that means that in order for me to be successful with that belief, I have to find someone else to, 1, tell me what to do, and 2, tell me if I did it right, and 3, tell me that I'm not stupid and tell me that I did a good job and that it's not my fault that it's not working. And then 4, tell me what to do next, right? So every single thing I just said is very outward focused, but more than that, it means that if I find a dingbat coach who gives me all the bad advice and I just put all of my hopes and dreams in, then I've just now put myself in a position where I'm going to feel terrible because that coach doesn't know anything. So after like a year there of feeling terrible and horrible, I go to find another coach. That person also doesn't know what they're doing. That person tells me try this, this, and this. Yep. Find another coach. She knows what she's doing. She just runs a successful business. She says, I do these 16 things. You need to do these 16 things. So now you've already done stuff from the other 2 coaches. But you're like, all right, let's add these 16 things on. So now you've added 16 things on that she's given you, and it's still not working. But now you're like breaking under the weight of all the things you need to do. But you lack trust in yourself to let any of it go because all these coaches have told you need to do this. And so now you're doing the things that all the coaches told you to do, some of which is probably good for you, some of probably which isn't. And I can tell you right now, 50-50 is usually how it ends up. 50% is crap, 50% is good. And then of the remaining 50% that's good, we've got to figure out which is good for you, which is now you got to get rid of a whole other set of things. So you're getting rid of like a lot of stuff in your business. But if you don't trust yourself, then you won't trust what you can get rid of, which means you have to keep everything. Because any one of those things could be what destroys your business. And if you get rid of the one wrong thing, you're screwed. And because we established earlier that you don't know what you're doing, right? You can't make that decision. So now it's not that you can't, by the way. It's just that these are the stories we tell ourselves, right? That mindset that we bring with us from childhood is why we struggle so much in business today, because we have these workflows in our brain already set up and we're just like, oh, okay, just slide right in. There's only one way to get out of that workflow, and that is to acknowledge that it's there, Acknowledge how it is damaging you, because it's making you feel like you need to do more. It's not making you feel like you are enough, because one of the most important things that this damage has done to us is it's made us feel like in order for us to be of value, we have to do something, not simply be, right? So Vanessa would be so good if only she applied herself. Oh, that means I have to do something to be accepted, to be cool, to belong. The community will reject me if I don't have this, because that's exactly how it was told to me, that this is important. You've got to be with the community. You've got to be smart. And as a child, you don't really, I mean, as an adult, I'm like, oh, so what, middle school, grades, whatever, you're fine. But as a child, that's not how you process it, right? As a child, this is your community withholding comfort, withholding validation, withholding recognition, withholding love, withholding whatever it is, right? So, that is where this inner mean girl voice and these problems from our childhood and all of these things come together to form one big knot of a problem, right? We're trying to solve the problem in 100 different ways, and I've tried it for years in therapy and in many, many other ways, and the way that those ways have not worked for me. And they haven't worked for a lot of people because we focus so much on the mean girl aspect and on other things. We're not actually just focusing on the one thing that we really need to be looking at, which is the actions that we take after therapy, right? Continue. Therapy is a critical part of this conversation. You cannot get through it without therapy. However, there's a secondary component of therapy, which is the actual operationalization of the things that you learn in therapy. And the operationalization is really, what do you do afterwards? What do you do when you get home? What do you do during the day? What are some of the practices that you implement? And one of those practices is this that I'm sharing with you today. So what I want to leave you with today on this podcast is I want you to be kinder to yourself. Just when you have that moment where you hear that voice, I want you to hear my voice saying, are you okay? And I want you to ask yourself that question and start a dialogue. If you are able at this point, find some time to meditate, download the Headspace app, do something for yourself that you love. Feed your soul. Feed your soul with something that brings you joy, right? Doing things like that show care for the person that's inside and show that you're prioritizing that person's needs and you're prioritizing yourself. And then that person will return the favor and will then act as a catalyst to give you more results in your business, more results in your life. The joy that you will find will be unparalleled when you start to prioritize your own joy. And even more than that is the results that you get that you're trying so hard to get now by chasing in your business and like psychotically holding on to things and adding new stuff. You will get those results simply by pulling back and being kind to yourself. The solution is not what we thought. The solution is something different. And this is the beginning of that solution. I want to thank you so much for joining me for the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast today. This is a very, very meaningful podcast to me because the relationship I built with myself is one of the most important things that I've ever done for me. I am so thrilled that I did it. And I know that if you do it, you will also feel thrilled as well. I want to encourage you to please share this podcast with anyone that you feel would benefit. I don't even want to say business owners, just anyone you feel would benefit, because I think as women, we tend to be really, really hard on ourselves, and we could all use the reminder that we are enough just as we are, and that we can accomplish anything, and that we are deserving of prioritizing ourselves. Okay, that's it. Oh, wait, no, hold on. That's not it. That's not it. One more thing. Also, guys, I have submitted for a grant for this podcast because I'd like to take this podcast to the next level. I'm still workshopping exactly what that looks like, but on the business page and on my personal profile, there is a link there that basically says, hey, write a love letter for me. What that basically means is you click on the link that's there and tell them why you love my podcast. Tell them how awesome I am and that you adore me and that I'm the greatest person on the whole universe and that you really, really think I should get money so that I could make this podcast even better. You can actually say whatever you want, but it's called love letters, so I assume you'll want to say nice things. So please, please, please go head over to the link in the show notes and leave your review of our podcast so that we can get $5,000 so that we can do amazing things with this podcast, hire more people, and just have a crazy great time. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you more than you know. Okay, that's it. All right, now we're done. Okay. Hello. All right, Paula Haswell, thank you so much, dude. All right, I'm coming up now. All right, on the comments. Okay, that was intense. That was so intense. I was like, as I started crying, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to start crying. I was like, shit, should I cry? It's like, I was like, should I stop myself from crying? I don't know. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to cry. I don't think I can stop myself. So that happened. All right. Okay. Okay, let's see. So Paula went to, Dawn said, post your one-liner. Dude, I will if I had a starting point. I still need a starting point. Okay, my day went to Catholic school with those ruler slapping nuns. Oh my God, your dad. Oh my God, the ruler slapping nuns. Oh shit, those people were awful. It was with a, I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. They probably still have them here. They're wooden rulers, but they have blades at the edge, like a really sharp blade. And so when they what they do is they'd do this. Ah! They do this, right? You'd have to do this, and then they smack. They do that. It was bad. Okay. Alrighty. Hey, Dee Dee. Good to see you. Hello. I felt like I've always had to prove that I'm good enough just to get a seat at the table. Exactly. I've always felt that way. Like I have to prove that I deserve to be here. And I'll tell you, at this stage of my life now, I don't feel that anymore. Like the conversations that I've had with myself and the validation that I've been able to give myself is what allowed me to shave my head like this. It's what allowed me to get the hand tattoo, which I was afraid of. Like I was nervous because this is a big step. Like it's the step that you said, I just don't give a fuck anymore. And I didn't know if I was actually there, right? So I was like, well, I'll do it and then I won't give a fuck. I was like, all right. But I think that it really took me getting to know myself better and like creating that safety net, because if you know that your person is, that you are going to be your safety net, then you feel, so you know what it's like? It's like, let's say right now, like I have a cliff on the other side of this, right? Let's say I go and jump off that cliff. I'm going to be injured and probably die. But let's say instead I have this bubble around me that's like a foot or so, and it's like spongy, right? And it's like spongy, and I like jump over. Then I'm just gonna right? It'll be super fun. Be like, hey, I'm bouncing across the water. I'm floating. It's so fun, right? So the conversation that I had, and I have had, like it sounds like it's one conversation. It's a lot of conversations over the time. It's created that bubble around me, right? So like now I don't feel so exposed, even if I am exposed, because I feel like I have her to protect me, and her is me, but you know, it's just, it helps me to have them separate. Okay. Oh, the text went out. Like I saw that when that happened. It was like so late. It's like, oh, there it is. I never felt good about myself because I was picked on kid no matter what school I went to in elementary. Oh my God, dude, kids are the worst. Oh, so the worst. I'm so sorry. This journey is one for the books. Always a new chapter and something new to learn and love. Absolutely, LaFern. Absolutely. So LaFern says I'm doing really well with my inner dialogue talk. So LaFern has been working on her inner dialogue for a long time. I think you and I started talking a couple of years ago, right? Like when you found Amy Lee, or I can't remember now. I can't remember if I directed you there or whatever. But regardless, I think you've been working on it for a while now, and I'm doing really well with my self dialogue talk. Takes many conscious connections and catching the nasty, and that's actually the key. Sorry, my nose is really itching. Catching the nasty is key. Like when it's in the moment when you really want to like be mindful, right? So like and I sometimes, I mean, it's one of those things where I've been doing this for 40 years or so, right? So it's not like I'm going to be like, oh, I've changed my habit and now suddenly I'm just going to be nice to myself all the time. It's not how it works. So there are definitely times, like just the other day, day before yesterday, I was making my bed and like I heard the voice say something like, you're stupid or you're dumb, you're never gonna, and I'm like, I thought we weren't gonna do that anymore. So that's actually the language that I use now. Instead of like saying, you know, anything bad back, like whenever I hear that voice, the first thing I say is, I thought we weren't gonna do that anymore, what's up, right? And then it just becomes like a, what's up, you know, because like initially you're gonna have this deep meaningful conversation, but after a while you guys are talking enough to where she comes at you and you're like, dude, what gives? You know, I thought we weren't doing this anymore, right? And then it's just like a different kind of conversation rather than because you've already built it. So you're not going to flood all the way back. You don't get to the point again quickly where, I mean, you can definitely drift all the way till you get back to the bad point, but it's not going to happen like overnight. Like you'll definitely hear those voices in your head and you'll be like, oh dude, I thought we weren't doing that. And it's fine. If you ignore them long enough, they will build up and then ultimately you'll fall right back into that same old habit. But like, you have a lot of opportunities to maintain the habit or to fall from the habit. So it becomes like a sort of just like a very light thing that you're doing. Initially, it requires a little bit more intention because you're so used to, and you're used to being mean. And you've also bought into the fact that the mean girl is just how it is, right? And I reject that. I am actually so into rejecting a lot of things that I thought were just like fact. And one of them is that the mean girl is just in your head and she's there, and like all these ideas about why she's there and what she's doing. It's like, no, you know what? She's there to help me. And I know she's there to help me. And you know how I know that is because she helps me, right? All right. My friend of mine suggested one hand over heart and one hand over belly. That's really good. I like that a lot. I've done that too. When I have a hard time grounding or when I'm like feeling super anxious, I will put one hand over my heart and one hand over my belly. Breathe in very deeply. By the way, I was able to crack my sternum. Thank God. Oh my God, the sternum cracking like this morning. I was just like, come on, like shoving my tits out. I'm like, come on, I have to do this. It was so painful. That is totally, absolutely, that is great. Okay, I'm in LaFern's headspace. Well, I live in your head right now. Like, creepy. Tiffany says, there are times when I definitely want the validation, but there are other times when I sincerely don't know what's not working and I can't fix what I don't know. Exactly. And I think that is really, so this is an important thing that you brought up, Tiffany, because when you are in the space where you're like, you've got both of those things going on, where it's like, I actually don't know what to do, right? And because, I mean, there are things that we don't know, like fact. When you're in the space of I'm looking for validation for other people and like you're looking for that, it can get difficult to separate which one is which, right? Because and I'm going to use myself as an example only because it's just easier to talk about it myself because I know the experience I went through. Is that when before I had this conversation, I was so cluttered in my head in terms of what was me looking for validation versus what do I really not know, that I was kind of just willing to try or do anything to just get what I was looking for, which is that feeling of confidence that I like. You know what, here it is. There's a difference between not knowing what you're doing and saying, I don't know this thing. I'm going to go now and find a coach who can help me. I'm going to learn the thing and I'm going to do the thing. Right? But then there's a difference between that and saying, I don't feeling like I'm not good enough to do it. And even if I found it, I wouldn't know it. And no matter what it is that I'm doing, I'm going to need to find someone to tell me that I'm doing the right thing because I don't think I'm doing because no matter what it is, I'm not going to believe in myself. As you develop, and this is what we do in the squad, right? As you develop, you get the skills that you need and the tools that you need so that slowly you can start to separate. So you end up doing a bunch of things. One, you get rid of your need from external validation. So now you're finding your validation inside. So that takes care of a lot of clutter. Two, you get rid of half the things you're doing because now somebody has told you or you have figured out based off of your to-do list how to break down the things that you're doing and how to eliminate these things because they're not priorities or they're not important or they're not creating progress, right? So when you do that, that builds more confidence in you. So that now when you look at a coach and you're like, okay, this coach is doing a course right now, instead of coming to me, for example, and I'm not saying that coming to me is bad. I'm just sort of saying this is the development process that we all go on. So if you come to me or any coach and say, should I do this? Do I need to do this? That kind of thing. You reach a stage where for that particular thing, you're like, I already know that I don't need this. I don't need that from Vanessa. But because we all keep moving ahead on the line and we all keep progressing and growing, there may be something else further on down the line. So for example, when you first start, the question you may ask me is, do I need to be on Facebook or Instagram or whatever? A lot of people ask me those questions. And I rarely tell you, no, you shouldn't be on any of these things. What I tell you instead is, okay, here's what I think. Start on Facebook because it's the easiest and that's where most of the people are. But here's my thought process for whether or not you want to add another social media platform or you want to stick with this. And I basically give you the thought process, not the answer. I'll give you the thought process first, and then we'll talk about it until we get to the answer. Because what happens then is that now you've learned how to workshop the answer for yourself for the future. And so for me, my goal is always to help everyone workshop to get to where they want to get to. I'll give the answer, of course, because you've asked me the question, I'll give you the answer. That's why I'm here. But it's not for right now, that I'm telling you all this, right? I'm not telling you about how the process works for this moment. The reason why I'm telling you about how the process works is because let's say I get hit by a bus and I'm dead, okay? That blows for all of us, but now if you need help, who is going to replace me in that moment, right? Who's going to be able to help you with that in that moment? But as long as I've shown you how, you don't need me because I want to be here as your support. I want to be here as your guide. I want to be here as your mentor, as your, Elisa calls me the business therapist, right? In as much as you need me, but I don't want you to feel like you can't succeed without me. And that is where a lot of us get caught up, is because for many of us, we feel like we cannot succeed without something, as opposed to thinking this coach is an enhancement and is amplifying what I'm doing, is making me better. She's going to shine and help make things going. But she is, without her, my business is not going to, I'm not, and I know that I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but this is how I used to feel, right? I used to feel like, one, I needed validation from someone else. But two, I didn't know what it would take to be successful, so I needed Brenda. And so I kept going to Brenda for that help, right? Because I was like, I need this, I need this, I need this. But Brenda and I are both of the same mind where we really want to teach the methodology, less the answer. I mean, the answer you get, but we want you to know the methodology. So she taught me a lot of methodologies and helped me to move, to bring a lot of things in that then allowed me to make the decision about, I need help with this, I don't need help with this, because it's not about shaming needing help. So this is really important, and I want to make sure that I'm being clear. I don't want anybody to feel bad because you're coming to me for help. It's not an indication of anyone being wrong or damaged or anything like that. It's really more just about how you feel inside and how you want to feel inside, and the tools that will help you get to the place where you can have a coach who helps you, know where to go for your help, but don't feel bad if something doesn't go right or doesn't work, because you feel confident enough in what you're doing and you validate yourself enough to where it's like, oh, it's fine, it didn't work, I'll just try something different. Oh, it's fine, this didn't work, I'll ask Vanessa what she thinks about this and we'll workshop a solution, as opposed to that feeling of, oh my god, I suck. That's really the key. I hope I said that right. Okay. But that was really, really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm this close to some sort of mental breakthrough. I can feel it bubbling beneath the surface. I'm waiting for the words to describe it and explain it so that I can take the action. So, Christy, I have been on that cusp for like the last 2 months, and I actually fell off the cusp, and it was like, 2 weeks ago. And I remember when it happened, and I know it's like when you have that feeling, it'll be amazing. But when you're on that feeling, it's like the worst. It's literally like you're sitting there and you're just like, oh my God, come on. I know you're there, right? It's so annoying. Okay, alrighty. I feel like I'm having so many mental breakthroughs lately. I want to cry. Dude, cry. Crying is so good. It's so good. It helps to just release a lot of that stuff. Like, I love the crying. Like, the only reason why I don't cry more on these lives, like I could have gone and cried like a lot deeper before, was that like then I get all like and then I can't really talk, and then it just gets like, I do it in the squad because like that's fine, like in terms of like we can afford to lose like 10 minutes to me crying and snotting and everywhere. I don't want to do that on a public forum, but I am so all about the crying. Oh, Paula, where did the nails go? I ripped them off my hand, dude. I ripped them off within an hour. I could feel them in my, like, I could feel pain in my nails from wearing them. Like, and I know that sounds really dumb, but that's how it felt. And I just couldn't sleep because the pain on my nails was excruciating. And I was just like, I woke up in the middle of the night, I was just like ripped. I was like, get off of me, get off of me. And I just ripped them all off. And I woke up in the morning and they're just like, there's like nails all over the floor. It's just, and I'm lucky Kira didn't eat any of them. I was like, oh, thank God. I feel like I've had to prove myself through most of my jobs because I was always the only female. It's tiring feeling like that 14 plus hours a day. Dude, I absolutely, like, this is something that women struggle with, people of color struggle with. This is, you know, and women of color, like, there are, like, I call them the plus ones, right? So there's being a woman, right? Or being a person of color, any one of those, and then plus one, right? And then if you have any one of the plus ones, chronic illness, mental illness, woman and person of color, it is just such an exhausting journey. It is like, and the truth is that it exhausts you to the point where, because like you're so busy trying to just prove that you have the right to exist, that you don't have the bandwidth to do the things that you really love doing and you're really good at. And so the question that I have is for myself, and it's not a question for you, this is a question for myself, because I myself have put myself in this, I've been in these situations many times, and I've been to the point where I was feeling abused and I was breaking down inside and outside and all over. Like I was in the ER, like it was bad, right? Why am I still here? Why am I still at this place? Why am I still at this place, right? And it really, those were some of the things that gave me I'm sure that's why maybe you left some of your companies, was because you were like, I do not want to be here. Truthfully, one of the reasons why I didn't leave some of the places was because I didn't think I had enough value to go anywhere else. I didn't think anybody else would want me. I believed the voice in my head, because at this time I hadn't worked through the voice in my head. So I believed the voice in my head. So the voice in my head said, oh, you're stupid, nobody else is going to want you. Well, then I guess I really shouldn't leave this place, because I'm lucky. I am lucky to have a job. Yeah, okay, I'm miserable, I'm sick, I'm going to the ER, but at least I have a job, right? And that's, I'll be honest, that's another part of programming. That is so programming, where people are like, well, you should just be happy that you have a job. You should be happy that you're not this. It's like, that's a way, people say that to keep you stuck and locked in the box that they want you to stay in. That's what that is. When someone, you should be happy that, no, you know what? You should go fuck yourself, right? That's my thought process. Sorry, I know that was a little aggressive. Okay. Alrighty. So, internal validation would change my life, Elisa says. Absolutely. So, Elisa, I would really recommend trying that. I think that I do agree. I think that having an internal voice validate you would be really joyful for you. I think you would really enjoy it. This is why you make a great coach. Make us come to our own conclusions. That's my goal, right? I just need to learn how to say it better, because sometimes I feel like I say it like, don't ask me for help, which is not really what I'm trying to say. But it can, I just worry that it sounds that way. So I always want to be clear that it's not about me. It's not about me not wanting to help. It really is about you feeling excited and empowered, right? And no one feels empowered if they feel like they constantly have to go to somebody else to get the answers, right? And I don't want you to feel like you have to, like, and a lot of people, and that is, by the way, a sign of an abusive relationship, is if somebody is constantly putting you in a position where you need them, right? Like, they won't give you the information, they just give you enough, so that you always have to come back to them. If you have a coach or anyone in your life who does that, where they just give you enough to where you always have to come back to them, consider eliminating them from your life, because chances are they are trying to keep you tethered to them by withholding information, withholding intimacy, withholding love, withholding validation, and they actually may be part of the problem. Okay. Not gonna lie, drives me nuts when I just want an answer. Oh, dude, yeah, I know, it drives me nuts as well. It drives me nuts when it's done to me. Actually, you know what drives me nuts is when it's done to me and I'm like, shit, I knew I should have done that. Like, I should have probably, like, okay, like, when I knew better, I'm like, oh damn, I knew better, right? But that usually tells me that, like, I'm really close to, like, getting it solidified. If it's something that I didn't know better, then it's, like, probably gonna be early on in the development. Okay, so I have discovered that I annoy some of you when I don't give you answers. I like that. I actually annoyed one of my clients the other day. She asked me for help on an email, and I wrote back and I said, I was like, no, you tell me what's wrong with this email. There was nothing wrong with the email. The email was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I was hoping that she would look at it and feel like there's nothing wrong with it. And she couldn't find anything wrong with it. And so she was so confused. And I was like, dude, that's the thing. Your email's perfect. I want you to trust inside yourself, right? Because you are amazing. You are so cool. And you know so much, and you've accomplished so many things, and you have so many things that you want to do and be and experience. I want all of that for you. And you won't be able to get there, right? I mean, you can get there accidentally, but you won't be able to get there with joy if you don't give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the process. And most of us don't give ourselves the opportunity. That we're so busy looking at, oh, when I get there, when I get there. I got to tell you something. We're always going to be chasing a goal. So if you're looking at the achievement of your goal for happiness, then you're never going to be happy, because there's always going to be another goal. The second you hit one goal, you're going to go, oh, now I have another goal. Well, when I get that, my sister, I'll tell this story because she's told it before. My sister came to me this one year. She's crying. She's so upset about her sales. She's like really upset. She's expecting more. Her sales are down. She's like, oh my God, my sales are so down. Everything's terrible. And she's really, like, she's just feeling really down on herself, like really down on herself. And I was like, well, okay, I got to ask you something. I was like, what was your goal when you started your business? I was like, what is it that you actually wanted to make each month? And she goes, well, $10,000. And I said, okay, great. I was like, well, what are you selling right now? And she goes, $30,000. And I'm like, okay, let's sit on that for a minute. And she sat on that for a second, and she was like, oh my God. She's like, I'm making 3 times what I said I wanted to make as my goal, but I just am giving myself shit over it. Because she just didn't believe that it was enough. It didn't matter. It was never going to be enough. She was always going to be. And that was one of the most important conversations she and I ever had, because that allowed her to simply stop running. And most of us are always running. You're running when you're awake. You're running when you're asleep. You're just always running. You're running because there's just so much to do. And what I want to offer you is there's plenty of time to do everything that you need to do. And that when you are focusing on your current joy and really building and designing and prioritizing building and designing a life that you love and prioritizing yourself, the goals come. And you pass them and you miss them, and you pass them and you surpass them by tenfold, and you don't even notice because you're enjoying the journey so much. So that's what I want to leave you with today, is enjoy the journey, guys. The journey is amazing. The journey is fun. The journey, that is the process. That is what it is. Like, the journey is why we're here, right? So, alrighty, guys, you're amazing. I will see you. When will I see you? Tomorrow. I'm going to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. with my sister, Sarah Valley, for